Thanks for hitting play. We have an incredible episode with you today. And Legends and Losers is sponsored by our good friends at Oracle NetSuite. To turbocharge the growth of your business, check out netsuite.com/legends. We're going to hang out today with the amazing Ann Morehauser. She's the founder of Annieglass, and they are a high-end artisan glassware company here in the Monterey Bay area. And her work is in the Smithsonian. We have an incredible conversation about how she niched down to make her own place in the world, how she got great at both being a creative artist and an entrepreneur, which, as you know, is rare to have in one person. She tells us about how she's created an experiential retail experience, how she's embraced the internet, and the power of staying small. All right. The Ramones said, hey ho, let's go. And that's what we're going to do. Hello, my legendary friends. I'm so glad you decided to join us for this episode of Legends and Losers. If you're new, welcome. And if you're a longtime listener, bless you. You're the reason we do this. Now, we are one of the very few free-range, long-form, authentic dialogue shows. And the name of the show comes from the simple idea that you can't be a legend without losing some along the way, and we want to unpack both sides of it. Now, Legends and Losers is not for everyone because this podcast is the opposite of the normal experience you have of a highly edited interview show that spoon feeds you talking points, prefabricated narratives, and quick, handy tips. Quick tips. We aspire to be an authentic dialogue show, to have real, raw conversations in long form that are engaging, interesting, educational, fun, funny, and sometimes we chase rabbits down zebra holes. Now, we are sponsored by our good friends at NetSuite, and they, like us, want to help you succeed at growing your business. According to Fast Company, two of the top reasons companies fail are failure to manage their cash effectively and not being able to support their growth. And I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of companies with massive potential, huge category opportunities fail because they couldn't execute their way forward. And often, I've noticed, particularly with earlier stage startup companies, there comes this period where there's a massive category battle that takes place. And it tends to take place over, sometimes it can be short in the B2C space, as short as 9 months. And in the B2B space, sometimes about 18 to 24 months. But regardless, as a category emerges, there's a wicked battle that takes place. And the company that can execute and scale and capture that growth are the ones that take off, and I've seen many fail to do that. NetSuite has a deep and wide set of capabilities to help you manage every aspect of your business processes in one easy-to-use cloud platform. And NetSuite is surprisingly cost-effective. For Legends and Losers listeners, they are offering a free 1-hour growth review with an expert in your industry to help you identify opportunities and barriers to turbocharge your growth. You'll learn how to acquire new customers, increase profits, and finally to get real visibility into your cash. So to schedule your free growth review, check out netsuite.com/legends. You can do it right now as you're listening. Ann Morehauser, she was referred to me and introduced to me by my dear friend Karen Hibma. And if you have not checked out Karen's episode of Legends and Losers, I would suggest you do that. When Karen was on, let me say it this way: after Karen was on and we dropped her episode and I listened to it, I was so taken by her awesomeness that when the episode stopped, I just wanted to call her so that I could continue having a conversation with her. Anyway, that's episode 144. And Karen is plugged into this world of highly creative, innovative, entrepreneurial folks, and she introduced me to Ann. Ann is the founder of Annieglass, a highly successful line of glass and glassware, tableware products that are sold at luxury stores, fine stores, and at resorts and restaurants, used at restaurants around the United States. Her handcrafted products are made in Northern California, actually here in the Monterey Bay area, not too far from where I am right now in Santa Cruz, and has developed her company throughout the years to become one of the largest and most successful independent glass studios in the United States. And she started in 1983. 1983. So when you think about design, niching down and really creating a place for yourself in the world where you can be super successful, and doing that over the long term, that is to say building a true enduring company in an enduring category, that's exactly what Annie has done. Her work is in the Smithsonian, the Gallery of Modern Art in Glasgow, Scotland, in the Corning Museum of Glass in Corning, New York, and as I mentioned, it's some of the finest hotels, restaurants, and retailers on the planet. Here she is from Annieglass and Morehauser.
Not just the Millennials, but everyone is buying online. So a lot of the independent retailers that I've sold to for a long time are having a rough time. And then the good thing is there's 11 million more of them than us, and a lot of them get married. So brides and grooms and brides and grooms buy a lot of Annieglass, so that's a good thing for me. But the disruption of the retail chain is huge. It's a big thing. It's happening right now.
And how do you offset that with the reach and the power of being able to market your glass on the internet?
Well, we have our own website that we've really strengthened and redesigned, and
it looks great.
Thank you.
I've been on it.
Thank you. Well, that's thanks to Sadie Phillips.
Well, Sadie seems, I haven't dug around every corner of it.
My son's girlfriend, so that's a good thing.
I love it. You're keeping it in the family.
I told him, she's wonderful. You need to break up with this girl. I need to hire her.
Well, I thought maybe you should marry her.
I know. Well, I'm not allowed to say anything about that. I'm not going to answer that.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. How old's your son?
30.
Yeah.
He's an artist here in town. He's a muralist. You see a lot of his work.
What's his name?
Taylor Reinhold.
Wow.
Yeah.
How very cool.
Yeah, he's really gifted.
Well, it must run in the DNA.
Well, I think it was my great-grandfather. Yeah, his great-great-grandfather was a muralist in Italy. It's two brothers.
Wow.
Traveled around doing murals. And then I'd hear
stories. Can you make a living as a muralist? Is that like a category that works?
Well, that's a nice way of saying graffiti artist,
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. and it's hot right now. Yes, it's really, he's got his own line of socks and
wow.
An agent, Yeah,
I love that.
Shit. He's been on the cover of the Good Times. I'm jealous.
Wow.
Open studios.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah, but I can't just brag on my one kid. My daughter, Ava, now. Now, Ava Reinhold, on the other hand, she started. So we closed Santana Row and we opened the craft bar in our studio inside the big warehouse in Watsonville. And she started doing these succulent gardens. I think she went for Mother's Day to make me one at a local place. And she realized how much money she spent. That she could have had a nice piece of Annieglass with this succulent garden. She gave it to me. So she said, we're going to start. So she went to the guys in the back of the studio and said, can you make a hole in this Annieglass second piece, second quality piece? And she instantly made her a planter. And so she planted it with succulents, and we started doing, and now it's so popular and it's always sold out that we had to add them so that we have them every other week now, every other weekend. We have to have one of the succulent garden workshops, and I do make a plate. I love
it.
Yeah, I know. I do make a plate. We have John Albrecht from Good Life Ceramics. Like this weekend, we're having the big St. Patty's Day party with live music and make a mug. So and beer, 2 beers from.
Make a beer mug, I assume, for my Guinness.
Exactly.
Would you help me make a shot glass for my JMOs too?
A ceramic one, if you want. Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, anyway, it's great. So we do workshops in clay, glass, macrame, embroidery, collage work with Suzanne LaCourte. We have all kinds of great stuff going on. People really have this need, to put down their phones and use their hands and make stuff and actually really dig in and just tune out.
So how often are you doing these trainings, Ann?
We do these workshops. They're 90 minutes. Some of them don't even last that long. They're every weekend.
Every weekend.
Mm-hmm. And so every weekend. Yeah, we have been closed on Sundays from January, from Christmas.
Yeah.
But now we're open. This weekend will be the first one.
For
Sundays too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what percentage of the business is selling to your 400 customers?
Most of it.
Most of it.
A big chunk of it.
Yeah. And so the training is more a labor of love or a cool way to get people?
Bar? Well, the craft bar, because we closed our other store, we don't have another. This is the first time we've never had, we've only had one store. We've always had the store inside the warehouse in Watsonville. And so this is the first time we've only had one store, which is just like, what? What are you going to do with ourselves? No, it wasn't that. This was my solution to the disruption of the retail chain. Experiential retail, I had been told, was the only thing that was going to survive and flourish. And I see that. I mean, it's people come down. We do free tours on the weekends as well. And for about 7 years, we've had a wine tasting room.
Wow.
So we expanded that to craft beer about 2 years ago. And then, so people now come down. I mean, someone even wants to have a wedding in our place. They said they like the industrial chic look of it. But.
Well, there you go. That was your plan from the beginning, wasn't it, Ann?
I was like, wait a minute. I don't know. But anyway, I don't want to tell my insurance agent about that yet.
I won't tell them.
No.
So the other thing that's really been a lot on my mind about you is, which is why I asked you the question about sort of your headset around your identity for yourself. You are an artist in a very artistic field or arty field, right? And there are lots of people who want to be artists of one form or another. And yet there are very few artists who are able to turn their art into a successful 35-year-old business, never mind getting the Smithsonian, although I assume that's more the art side. But how is it that you have been able to be both an artist and a successful 35-year plus entrepreneur?
Well, because I'm a designer and a manufacturer as well, and a business person. So I think I would just get bored, if I was just an artist. I love the challenges, it's got to keep my attention longer or I'll just be bored. It's give me some problems, give me some chaos.
And so how do you
let me fix that. Yeah, I think I can do that. So certainly I've chosen a field that was appropriate for that.
Because you get a little of this, a little of that.
All the time. So.
But how do you think about that sort of that left brain, right brain thing about there's this creative artist in you, but there's somebody in you that must also figure out how to manage the cash flow and all that shit, right?
Right. Well, I think that's just the way people have to be now, and that's what they call design. That's what IDEO calls design thinking. That's what, sustainability with the MBA programs, that it's about being able to do both, being able to be creative and be good at finance, be good at math. But I do have to say, my whole right side is completely, I'm actually twisted and fighting to get more left side. But
so your left side feels somewhat overwhelmed by your right side sometimes.
I'm literally like twisted. I get a massage and they're like, "You're like a corkscrew." So I know. I need to have some more finance meetings. No, but seriously, to answer your question, well, the time period that I was raised, it was really a stigma, if you're an artist and you didn't know, you weren't good at math or you weren't good at science, which is total crap because so much of it is the same, the analytical abilities. But I think it's my upbringing. My father was German, from German American, and he went to the Wharton School. My mother was Italian and from Italy and very emotional and really gifted with making things. And so,
was your mom the artist?
Yeah, well, she was more the craftsman, crocheting, knitting, sewing, and she could
hand
sew
stuff with her hands.
Everything from she could sew. I remember she took my father's camel hair coat and made it into leggings and another coat from all my brothers. She made all my Barbie doll clothes. I was like desperate to have a store-bought Barbie doll. outfit. Desperate.
But you know, if you look at it through today's lens, right? How awesome your mom was making Barbie clothes.
I mean, and she made slip covers, you know, for like couches, 9-foot couches, you know, full drapes. She was amazing. She went to the Philadelphia School of Textiles, and you know, neither one of them could finish. That's when my brother was born, so neither one of them finished the secondary. Well, no, my dad was secondary, but my mom was. I don't know if that was I guess it was a college. Yeah, it was an art school. Became another art
So she
school
didn't
later.
make it out of art school, out of college?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. I didn't even go, so. So that's interesting. So you feel like you got your mother's creativity and your father's
when I went to
head, or how do you think about it?
Well, I was told that by Italians and Germans, because for years we would do a show in Frankfurt, the largest show, maybe familiar with, in the Messe. That's where they have the book fair and the auto show, and it's huge. It's 10 different halls, 10 Moscone centers. It's massive, and we did it for years. Anyway, that's how I got Bloomingdale's and Neiman Marcus, oddly enough, by exhibiting there. It's also how I got copied worldwide. But
it's how you got what worldwide?
Copied worldwide. You know, copied by many.
Oh, you copied, yes, like ripped off. Yes, but copied's maybe a nicer way to say it. Knock you off.
No, but I was represented.
Why be creative when I can just copy Anne, right?
I was represented by a German company, and Rosenthal China carried Annieglass in all their stores after that. But I was in their booth, and I was introduced to. It was very confusing for people, right? Because my name tag says Annie Morhauser, which is a German name, and I speaking, and they're like, "Wow, you speak great English." And then the Italian manufacturer
speak great English.
He goes, I said, "Well," he goes, "You don't look Italian." He says, when he finds out that I'm half Italian and half German, he's horrified. He's absolutely horrified. He says, "Oh my God, that's terrible." Why? Because he thinks, the Germans are just too analytical and that they've ruined the Italian in me. I'm not emotional.
But what a great, my wife is like you in that regard, and that she's all Italian, but she's that rare person like you in that plus or minus half her brain is spreadsheets, budgets, and you better be on time or I'm going to tear your nuts off. And the other half of her brain is just like insanely. I mean, you see how wonderful our home is.
Yeah,
and, that's her. And so she's one of those rare people like you where she's been able to harness both sides of it.
I think it has a lot to do with happiness too. I think if I were just one way or the other, I wouldn't be as happy an individual I am, or as satisfied in some ways. I mean, because you sort of get a little bit of everything, like rather than like pining about, oh, I wish I was smarter, or I wish I did this, or I wish I was more creative. Like, well, then, get off your butt and do it and try it, see how bad you are at it. And then also, there's a long history there too, that I've had to come up with a lot of money to buy out my partner, my ex-husband, to buy the business. And so the bank gave me the money, but they gave it with like some conditions. You're going to go. We're giving you $1 million, but you better go to this. Sort of like a school, not really a school, but it was an organization that met once a month, and you brought your problems to sort of like an ad hoc advisory board, more or less. The other members.
What today a lot of people call a mastermind group. Have you heard that term?
No, I haven't heard that. But this is more organized than that. But anyway, it was helpful. And then I learned things like ratios, what the bank was doing. And that didn't seem so difficult. And then also I had a really patient accountant from the very first day. And every month I'd be like, okay, so wait, tell me this again. I know you told me last month, 20 years later.
Tell me this a lot.
Wait, tell me this again. Wait, how does it, inventory change again is what? But but we figured out early on, I said, can you just make this, a ratio, like I can figure it out. Can you just make it a percentage? Like that is visual to me, and I can understand that, just rather than the straight numbers, just make that. And it was almost like, I was great in geometry, but not good at algebra, like a lot of artists, I think, or right-sided people. And So that was more like geometry in a way, which is just show me percentages. So, I had these funny little, P&L statements that always had everything in percentages. And that was super helpful. It was like, oh, is that all? Is that all we have to do? Oh, well, just fix that.
So,
and then
so
like
should
2
I
months later, see a change. It was great.
Should I take that to mean that you found a way with your accountant and maybe others in this group and other people to take debits and credits and general ledgers and accounts receivable and all that stuff and sort of convert it into a way that it made sense to your brain?
Right. We just had an added column on the end, and that was the one that I was looking at pretty much. And or I'd just circle any, discrepancies are really big. I'd circle those and zoom in on those. It's common sense. It wasn't anything particular, but
you hear so much about artistic people who can't or won't or have a hard time with the business side of being an artist.
Well, I think a lot of that too is I really bought into that. In fact, that's why I went to art school. I didn't take I didn't have to take math in art school. It's like, yeah, great, cool, okay. But the funny thing is so much as what I do is the science of it, which that was interesting. I was interested in science, but
because there's real science involved with making glassware, right?
Yeah,
like actual
real stuff.
Science shit.
Yeah, shit. Yeah, coefficient of expansion.
Yeah, you heat the glass up to this temperature, and this happens, and then
and it's going to break. Yeah, or it's going to put somebody's going to take this home. Put it. The pressure's really high. They're going to put it in a dishwasher. They're going to take it home and eat off it. Better not be like that. So
chemistry too, right?
Stuff. Yeah, chemistry. But I'm not very good at that part of it. So that chemistry part, we had some really funky ways of checking out the thermal stuff. I think there's something called there's an actual tool that you could use that my glassblower friends who make paperweights would use to measure the stress in a piece. And they did a lot thicker pieces, and they had to worry more about that. With what I was doing with slumping, just bending glass, versus what they were doing where they were using molten glass and then making it into a shape. They had a lot more issues to deal with. But I once in a while I was making something new and it was thicker glass. I really wasn't sure what I was doing. I'd borrow that and measure the stress just to make sure. And then, but in the early days before I even knew about that, I used to just put it in the freezer and leave it in the freezer. Actually, Jim Lundberg from Lundberg Studios up in Davenport, the late Jim Lundberg, he told me to do that. He said, just put it in the freezer, Annie, and see how long, before it breaks. If it's, a couple of hours or a day or whatever. So that was our first test. Now, of course, we have that tool, and I just can't think of the name of it. But anyway.
We'll just call it a carbidingulator.
Oh,
that's what I call everything. I don't know. Oh, that's a very awesome carbidingulator you created there, Jimmy.
That's great. That's a good one.
So I'm curious, if I was maybe a younger person, or maybe age doesn't matter, but if I was a more creative person, an artist of some kind, or a designer of some kind, or a musician, or somebody along those lines, and I was earlier, or maybe this is a new thing I was doing, what advice would you give me around how do I create the art that I feel passionate about and have that left brain side satisfied, and yet at the same time, I mean, you have made an extraordinary living, and you have people that you support, and you have a real company, and you're in Neiman Marcus and the Smithsonian, and so you have done things on the business side that I think a lot of artists couldn't even imagine having happen to them. And so, how would you think about that?
Well, thank you, but I think it's not fair to say too, because I made a choice of not being an artist and being a designer. So I was choosing not, to make multiples of something that could be saleable. So there was a choice there very early on. Do I want to do sculpture, and then go that route and the gallery route, or do I want to make something else? And what had happened was, in all my experience, when I went to art school in California College of Arts and Crafts in Oakland in the 70s. There was no books, there was no nothing, there's no internet, there wasn't even a textbook on how to make glass like
you couldn't just type in make glass in YouTube and figure that shit out.
There was no internet, there was nothing. And so when I got there, I already knew how to blow glass. I learned that at San Francisco State and at the College of San Mateo. And so my teacher there really pushed me to try this other thing called slumping. Or slumping, yeah. So you slump just like you're slumping your seat, right? Or you're slumping. You take the glass and you slump it.
I'm a very good personal slumper.
There you go. Stand up straight.
Story of my life,
right? So we would just take sheet glass and lay it over ceramic molds, and heat and gravity would drop it down into the mold. And that's what we do at Annieglass. Every piece is slumped. It's not blown. It's all slumped glass. And so it's very low tech in that regard. And then, except that we use a water jet to cut it, which kind of, I guess, evens it out. But the choice was, when I was doing all these experiments, I was being pushed like, hey, get this done, do this, don't blow glass, try the slumping, do sculpture. And it was very much, that was the direction I was pushed in. And so I had to do all my own experimentation, and I had to keep notes and logbooks like a scientist, really. And these were all experiments. So I got tired of just doing little squares of glass with, say I'd do colors, I'd experiment with ceramic colors or glass colors, and, from day one, we had to do everything. So I started doing plates instead. I'm like, this is baloney. I've got like 800 little glass squares of various colors, or notes on them, or with twigs in between them. Just like they're useless. So I'm going to keep doing this. I might as well use them. So the practical side of me, I could hear my mother's voice and like, why do you have all that? You should do something with it. So anyway, I made the plates, and then got to be pretty good at making plates after that. First ones were terrible, but I realized I came to Santa Cruz and worked for an art gallery, a glass gallery in Capitola Village, Walter White, and was great at selling glass. I knew these people, some of them, or I knew their work. I could explain in detail how everything was made, and I realized that there was a choice there. I got to see the business side of it. I got to see the back end. I was unpacking the boxes, from the glass artists and seeing how they pack things. I saw how their invoices, I saw how they billed people, and I saw also how they treated the customers, and it was really bad. A lot of ego involved, and so it wasn't that hard to make that leap. Like, okay, we'll be nice to customers. We'll give them credit. We
won't treat them like assholes for buying our art.
Exactly. We'll give them 30-day credit. That's what net 30 means. And we'll pack it really well so it won't break. And when it gets there, and I was really lucky to hire a young woman right out of UC Santa Cruz, UC Davis, Sherlyn Torres, who became our customer service manager. And then she was really smart. And she said, let me be the shipping manager too, which meant if she said something was ready, it was ready. So if a customer called and said, can I have it?
Because I gotta believe in your...
Because she's the shipping manager. She's the one that's going to make it go out.
She's going to make it work.
Exactly.
And I gotta believe in your business when I order something from you. You have a beautiful product that you say you're more of a designer than an artist, but your products are pieces of art, even if you repeat, make them on a repeated basis. People who buy your stuff are not going to... I don't even, this is not my world, but like Bed Bath and Beyond, or I don't know, where the hell do people buy Bloomingdale's, or where do people...
We buy Annieglass at Bloomingdale's.
They do buy Annieglass at Bloomingdale's, but they're not, this is not Walmart shit, maybe that, right?
Right, exactly.
And so this was an important purchase for me.
Right.
And so when it shows up busted, that's a bad day for the customer, and it's probably a horrible day for Annie's, right?
Right. Well, that's why... And so Sherlyn's been with us for 30 years. So, she's really, really good at what she does. And she has got a reputation in our industry for being an incredible customer service person. And that's because, she's in charge of the shipping department. It's a very unusual, we studied is it Koban, the Toyota method of manufacturing. I hired a general manager from Specialized Bikes, and so he kind of brought that whole system, which was really hard for us, being so, sort of knuckle dragger in our methods, of how we were making things at the time, and he did a lot of good that way, and brought us up to speed with just-in-time manufacturing. So we make about 200 pieces a day. And we do a lot of stuff to order too, and it's just really an art form of like how much inventory to have on hand and how much to make, and have a quick turnaround. And we've been really good at it. And
but at the same time,
I have nothing to do with that. I have to say, it's been my staff who are excellent production managers.
But at the same time, I imagine if you overbuild and you have all this inventory, as a small business, that's a hard thing to carry a lot of inventory, right?
Yeah, that is a hard thing, but that's what we have our retail store for.
Yeah.
So and our website. So
now, I can't remember. I consumed a whole bunch of stuff about you, articles and videos, and so I can't remember exactly where I heard it or read it, but somewhere I thought, Annie, that you made a conscious decision not to manufacture in, and I don't want to pick on a country, but some foreign country,
to stay small,
and to scale and maybe lower your prices, and so you made this choice to stay. You tell me if these are the right words. Kind of high end, artisan, made in America, made here in the Monterey Bay area.
Right. Well. I mean, it wasn't a choice to stay high end. It's just the way. You can't make it any cheaper here. But no. I mean, I get what you're trying to say. I made the choice not to go overseas. There's tremendous pressure to do that, and you see that with. And I think that's why I'm still here. You see that with all these designers come in, and they're like, oh, well, we have to make sheets and towels and dishes and beach chairs and beach towels and whatever, and iPhone covers,
beer openers
and everything,
stops,
and it's just crap, and it's more landfill, more or less. But anyway, for whatever reason, that they just cycle through. It's just voracious, appetite for that new designer, new stuff, and my thing isn't about that. I was classically trained as a craftsman, an American craftsman. So I got this great education, with Marvin Leposky, who helped start the whole American glass studio movement. So, I wasn't going to give that up. And also I knew a couple of people who had done that and sold their businesses, some who had sold their businesses and some had gone offshore, and they were really unhappy. And then someone who did do that came to see me, and they go, God, you're so lucky. You're just playing in your sandbox, aren't you? Just the actual, jealousy of being able to turn around, go make a prototype and come back, and it's like, oh my God, this worked. Yes. Like the edgy
But they could do that too. I guess my question is centered around, you made a choice that this is who you were. This is who Annieglass was going to be, and you said, we're not making doorstops and bullshit in pick your foreign country. We're making artisan, high-end craftsmen with craftspeople here in the Monterey Bay, and this is what I'm doing. Go fuck yourself. That was sort of the
That's
impression.
Exactly what I did. Yes. Thank you for putting it so eloquently. Well, because
and you say that's the reason you're here.
Part of it's because I could, too.
Well, say more about that.
Well, I mean, because I'm the president, vice president, treasurer, and what's the other one? Secretary of the Annieglass Corporation. So I can make
and what
decisions.
Ann says at Annieglass is you can't go any higher than the gal named Ann.
Exactly. If I'm talking to myself, it's a board meeting, So so it's great. So I mean, it's also a bad thing because I might not have enough restraint at times too. But
well, I don't know. Celebrating your 35th anniversary in business.
True.
Hard to say you fucked the thing up.
You got a point there. Yeah, maybe I'm being too hard on myself.
No, I think you are, and I think it's such an interesting choice that you made, because if you listen to people in the fashion business, by way of example,
really that's different. Although it is changing, there are more local. There are more people trying to keep it in-house.
Yeah.
And keep it here. But well, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle choice. That's what it was, really. It's a lifestyle choice. Do I want to be commuting to China, or Mexico, or wherever my manufacturing is going to be, or do I want to be able to make it right here, and be satisfied as an individual? I had a big lifetime thing change when the earthquake happened here. I'm in the glass business. We had the largest
Loma Prieta.
Yeah, Loma Prieta in '89.
Prieta, yeah.
Yeah, my son was 2 years old. I was 5 months pregnant with my daughter. I was in the glass business, and I had this huge weight. My mother died 2 weeks before that in a car accident, and it's like, whoa, man, it was like the big chill moment. I just, whoa, what do I want to do? Well, I know I want to stay true to myself, and that was that lesson learned. So it wasn't hard to make that decision to not listen to people who were going to try to make money off of me going overseas. It's like, well, what was in it for them? Those are the people that wanted me, to manufacture offshore. They would be the ones making the money at it, not me. So to hell with that.
So powerful that you stuck to your guns. And you said, I think earlier, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I thought you said, Anne, that's the only reason you're still here. Is that what you said? That you made that decision?
Probably. Well, I mean, maybe why. I mean, I see a lot of the people who don't do that. I mean, there was a trend for a while, like architect design dinnerware when I first started out, and every architect, right? Remember?
I'm trying to remember. Philip, was Philip Glass doing that? Who were the big?
No, Geary and
Geary did
Meyer,
that.
The one who's in the paper today. Richard Meyer, Frank Geary. I can't. A bunch of them. I don't know. I can't even think of them now. Oh, Venturi, probably.
It seemed like there was a time 20 or 30 years ago where artists had all kinds of products, and whether it was beach towels or whatever it was.
Yeah, and so anyway, none of those ever did very well. I think they were short-lived, put it that way. They probably did well for a brief time, and then a lot of fashion designers got into tableware as well, which is the industry. One of the industries I'm in, giftware is another one, and they got into tableware and they didn't do well. Other than like maybe Kate Spade is still making good-looking stuff and selling it, and there's just a couple of others, really a handful. And I think that's because they get stretched too thin, perhaps, or they don't know the material very well. They're just doing a drawing and say, here, do this. And then someone else translates it into, well, I think this is what she meant on this dinnerware. And our manufacturing facility can only do it in this way. So therefore, it comes out looking like crap sometimes. And I think that's the big difference. So
you hear this expression today, we got to stay in our swim lane. Right? I don't know where where the swim lane came from. Maybe it was when, Phelps was doing all his things, but you seem to have, Annie, a true north about who you are, what you should and shouldn't do. Like, where does that come from? How do you know what your swim lane is and what your swim lane isn't when so many people, to your point, in similar fields, if not directly in your field, end up making doorstops and beach towels?
I think it's probably because of how passionate I am about glass making. When I saw it when I was 19 years old at the beach here, in the Santa Cruz, San Mateo County line. And I think that was really a precursor to Burning Man. I know everybody talks about the one at Ocean Beach, but I think this one it was a May Day annual party at May Day. There was a outdoor raku firing at the beach. So the idea was, you just light everything on fire, right? And like a Burning Man. And so
it happens at our beach right here every January.
Oh, the tree, yeah. The
people take their Christmas trees and burn them in these giant bonfires on the
beautiful
beach.
Pictures coming out.
Well, and it smells great, and it's very dramatic, and there's something very cool about burning your Christmas tree on the beach.
People have been doing that in Hawaii too. That's been fun. Anyway, what were we talking about?
I was asking about how you sort of figured out
so
where your swim lane is.
So I saw, anyway, so I was just, I don't know, I was only 19, you know, it was like, oh my God, what is that? What is that guy doing? Someone brought a portable glass furnace to this event that never had one before. And it was a full moon. He's blowing, he's got long hair, and he has a long blowpipe, and it's like swaying in the breeze. You know, it's like, oh my God, what is that? You know, and I was studying dance and art at junior college. And I was like, oh my God, I think I could actually do that. Or you know, or I'm going to die trying, you know. That is just so amazing. It's just, oh my God, it's so hypnotic. It's so incredible. And, you know, and I suppose if I didn't have glass making, you know, who knows? I might be a junkie. I don't know. It was just, you know, really my.
So it was really
thing.
When you were 19, seeing that glass maker on the beach with the fire and
right.
the moon and the whole thing.
And then I learned glass making, and it was always hard enough. Just when I thought I knew what I was doing, you know, it would blow up, or it would break, or I'd mess it up, or my skill wasn't high enough, you know. So it's constantly correcting.
So is it a little bit like, you know, the thing in my life that's a lot like that is surfing, right? And there's something very poetic about Mother Ocean in that the minute you think, fucking A, that was my fourth awesome wave. I got my Slater Quan flowing. I'm the man. She's going to drown your ass, right?
Exactly.
Is it like that?
It's exactly like that. Just when you think you get some confidence going, boom, you know, so. And I
mean, I hate to interrupt you, but does that still happen to you today?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but you're a master today.
But I'm a master only because I keep doing better. If I'd stopped making new things, I wouldn't be a master, right? So I have to keep making new things. So you keep
breaking glass.
Well, I actually have, like, you know, design deadlines every 6 months. I have to do new collections and roll them out. It's a lot like fashion. You know, there's seasons in this business, and
you have to be creative all over again. And I mean, 35 years in, you're not trying to recycle shit you did 10 years ago or whatever, right? You're trying to always.
But that was the fun of getting the water jet and having that technology. It's like, oh my God, this is like, you know, being in art school again. Wow, I can get it to do this. Are you kidding me? I can cut little flowers out of the river.
So you embrace the new technology?
Not at first, no, because of that really strong craftsman. You know, that and the fact that it cost $180,000. You know,
wow,
that's another reason. But
is the way I should think about it? Is it that you know? Educate me if this is the wrong way to think about it. Is that sort of the equivalent of CAD for glass making? Is that maybe how I should think of it?
Basically, yeah. I mean, you can use CAD to do it. Yeah, it's a CNC machine with a flying bridge, so it goes across the sheet of glass and cuts it out, and then and it's 90,000 pounds of pressure per square inch with garnet sand, mixed with garnet sand. So, for instance, when we sandblast the glass, it's only 40 pounds of pressure per square inch. So if come for a tour sometime. 1:30, but Thursdays through Sundays, free tours.
I would love to come for a tour, and maybe we could even do a quick follow-up, even if it's just a short 15, 20-minute update, right from the worldwide headquarters of Annieglass.
That would be perfect.
Because I'd love. And how many do you call them, glass makers, or what do you?
Well, no one comes in knowing what we're doing. You know, more or less, it's the cutting of the glass. It's quite complicated. We cut the glass, grind it, decorate it, grind the edges round, and that way it doesn't chip so easily, and it's much more resistant. So that's why restaurants like it. Like, okay, David Kinch has these bowls. We had to look it up, like, on another computer system, because he bought them in 2009 and he's only broken one. You know, so
let me interrupt you there on that, because I find that interesting. So you do this very artisan thing with this, not format, but stuff's not the right word. Material that by definition is you got to be careful with, right? Mm-hmm. So how is it possible, Annie, that you can create these beautiful, I mean, I've seen your products, they're gorgeous. So you make these beautiful products for one of the greatest restaurants in the Bay Area, if not the country. And in a decade, they've only broken one. Like, how do you make how do you make it so damn functional and usable like that?
I can top that. The Santa Cruz Montessori School had, we gave them 22 glass dishes to use for their teas that they would, they invite family members. And by the end of it, and of course they were hand washing them, but they'd only broken 2 by the end of the school year, from September to May. So in the earthquake and Katrina and Sandy, I get these calls from all over the United States, people telling me these outrageous stories.
And Annieglass makes it through Katrina
in the 89 earthquake here, people will call and say, do you make windows? We live on the summit. Every window is broken. And the only thing left is Annieglass. It's amazing. Of course, if you throw it on a tile like your house here, it's not going to survive. But it's pretty sturdy stuff. In fact, one of the things I would do when I would train, go visit stores or train the store staff would be to throw one on the ground,
so they could see what happens when.
Well, no, it wouldn't break if I threw it right. There's a technique.
I remember years
and make sure
ago.
There's a pad under the carpet.
I remember years ago when I was traveling. I used to travel 300,000 to 400,000 miles a year, and you always want to travel. Yeah, I don't do that anymore. I'm done. But you always want to travel light. And the other thing is, I'd go to Sweden and Mexico City on the same trip. I mean, I'd be all. And so anyway, long story longer. I really wanted to find a coat that worked, that was, I could travel with it, and it would work in New York, and it would work anywhere, and if you jammed it in the overhead. And anyway, and I also, the big problem for me was I didn't want to have a raincoat and an overcoat, right? So if it was raining or the snow was wet, and then jacket gets wet, and you're on a week and a half long. But anyway, long story longer, have you heard of this super high-end clothing brand? Was it Laura Priana? Is that, I don't know how you say it. It's a very ding-dong.
Laura Piana?
Yeah. It's at Wilkes Bashford and, all these kinds of ding-dong places. So a friend of mine at the time said, well, they make this cashmere that's waterproof. I was like, what? So anyway, long story way longer, I go to the store that sells the ding-dong $billion jacket. And to your point on the demo, I'm asking the guy, I'm explaining exactly what I just said to you. And the guy goes, okay, well, come here.
And he pours water on it.
Yeah. And it fucking beat it off it. And the jacket cost $12 billion. But I just thought, fuck it, this is the last overcoat I'm ever going to buy. And that was 20 years ago, or almost 20 years ago. And I still have it, and it looks brand new. Mm-hmm. And it's been everywhere. And so people must be shocked when you throw your glassware on the floor and it doesn't blow up.
That's for sure. They do. And that's why we do resorts and restaurants and bars and things.
Yeah, because if I'm a resort owner, or if I'm what's his name, the guy that owns Manresa again,
David Kinch.
David, I want something amazing, something incredibly special in my glassware that you don't see everywhere, but it's got to be functional, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think David can do that because of Manresa, but the average restaurant, there, a lot of the China companies just completely undercut what I'm doing. They're much less expensive. They have restaurant divisions that,
of course,
make stuff. So, and then the copies. Copies of my things are always there. They used to do a lot of the copies of the Shell series that are in the Smithsonian. Those undermined. We lost a lot of sales to that. We used to do a lot of business in Asia in particular. The Raffles Hotel and things like that.
Those beautiful hotels. So
hotel orders are really nice.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And so even a hotel chain like Raffles would buy the knockoff instead of buying
they bought mine.
Okay.
No, they bought mine.
Okay. Yeah. But the sort of the next tier down, is that where the knockoff guys have hurt you?
Right. The knockoff guys have, since we did those orders, and since the knockoffs have come into play, but there's not as many of them anymore because, I have to take that back. We just recently had something going on, and I spent a fortune with legal fees trying to get somewhere, but it's sort of like the old. It was great. My VP of sales, Kristen Wilsey, weighs about 90 pounds soaking wet. And she and I we heard about these copies were of the newest designs, the edgy, which has the broken, fractured edge. It's gold. They're gorgeous. They're really thick glass, and one of my favorites. And it sells really well, though. Well, it's taken 3 years, but we saw the knockoff, and we went down, and just confronted them. My lawyers weren't getting anywhere, so we finally went, to their showroom in Atlanta and just, started telling them what for. And
how did they react when you and your 90-pound bodyguard
showed
up?
Well, they knew who I was, even though I was wearing a badge that said my name, because I wasn't trying to. And I waited till the end of the day. I didn't want to create a scene, but they weren't. They were scurrying around. It was pretty funny. And so then I made sure they took them away, took all the copies out of the show, and then I said, I'm going to be back tomorrow. And so as it turns out, Kristen, my 90-pound bodyguard there, had to stay in the booth and work the show, and take orders. And so I look over, and our neighboring exhibitor has come to work that day in a pinstripe suit with his hair slicked back. And he was this Italian-American guy. And he was perfect. I'm like, okay, come with me. Don't say anything. Just look really, really concerned. But don't say anything.
Just stand there and shut up.
Yeah, no, don't say anything. I'm going to pretend you're my lawyer, but we can't, it's illegal to impersonate a lawyer. So just stand there and just look really concerned.
It's illegal to impersonate a lawyer?
Evidently it is, yeah.
Oh.
So,
I mean, I guess
you don't want to
I never lie, but I do say, I do find myself saying things like, I'm not a doctor, but I'll take a look.
But anyway, it worked. It worked on the guy. Scared the hell out of him the next day, brought him down. And they don't have him anymore.
That's great.
Of course, I had to, yell at him one more time. I yelled at him one more time after that. It worked out.
And then I would have thought maybe now with the proliferation of the internet and so forth, that you could sort of digitally shame some of these rip-off assholes.
No? It's to the trade. It's what it is. So it's really not, that. If it was an individual doing something bad, I think you could do that.
Yeah.
This is in the trade.
So the other thing that's on my mind as you talk is I have this theory, you tell me what you think, that if you look at the school system and society overall, and even when we come out of school in our first job or two, that there's this undeclared but very clear sort of message we get sent, which is your job, particularly earlier in life, is to try a bunch of shit and to find out where you fit. So ultimately what you're trying to do is find your place in the world. Mm-hmm. And what I've sort of discovered over time, Annie, is that many of us can't find a place because there really isn't one. And therefore we have to make a place in the world. Our career, our creative expression, our financial well-being, our relationships, etc. Because there's no job, there isn't even a field for what I want to do. So I gotta design a new niche, and I gotta make a new place because one didn't exist. So if you think about that sort of paradigm of find versus make place in the world, how, what's been your experience for your own life and your own business? Did you make a place or find a place?
I definitely made a place. Are you kidding?
Well, no, that's what I would have thought, but
manufacturer.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely made a place.
And so, we now call that niching down. You picked this niche of, and you tell me if these are the right words or the wrong words, this artisan, craftsman, high-end, high-quality glassware that's incredibly unique, made by, people who actually give a shit. What was your customer service?
Sherlyn.
Sherlyn?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sherlyn packs that shit, or her team, right? Like this is the kind of people that you have and are surrounded by. And so I guess with all that said, what's it been like for you to make that place and create your own niche?
Well, I've had to be uncompromising a lot of times and take shit for it. And yeah, that's, it's
But what kind of shit do you have to take being uncompromising, Annie?
Called being a bitch, or called being too pushy, or controlling, or whatever, just or stubborn, and my mother always said I was stubborn and pig-headed. And my first
so you're a pain in the ass.
No, I'm not a pain in the ass.
I said that with deference, with respect.
Now if I was a man, I wouldn't be any of those things, most likely.
So this is obviously, I mean, I don't have to tell you, this has been a big topic for a while, right, and a huge topic of late. And so as a young entrepreneur, as a young woman, as a young artist, designer, artisan, all those things and more, young mother, how did you then and how do you now deal with people calling you a bitch or whatever they call you?
Well, being in the manufacturing field, being a glassmaker, I was always the only woman, or one of a couple. And, and it started early, the discrimination and the hassles and the harassment started really early. And, I deal with electricians, and, it came from every side, electricians, plumbers, freight guys, UPS men, salesmen, vendors, collectors, every. And
what
bankers.
Kind of shit did you have to put up with?
All kinds of shit, innuendo, flirting.
Did you ever have to sort of either verbally or physically give somebody a whack or talk, give them a talking to of one sort or another?
Yes.
And how much of it was the sort of the
company presidents? That would be another one.
And how much of it was sort of what today we might call sexual harassment versus just sort of male assholeness about a female entrepreneur?
Probably half and half.
Wow.
Well, it was a long time ago too.
Yeah.
I've been at this for a long time. But I grew up with 3 older brothers, and they were much older. They were 18, 10, and 8 when I was born. So, I learned how to fend for myself.
You mean they didn't just always protect you nicely?
No, actually, no. Their idea of protecting me was teaching me how to wrestle. Just in case for whatever reason I needed to defend myself. Know how to do a half Nelson, full Nelson.
I love that. Can you choke? You can choke my ass out?
Not anymore. I don't think so. But a little rusty. But that was the way it was in those days. And
now that you are who you are, and you're
there's an age thing too. When you cross a certain age, it's not as bad. There's not. You don't get that.
On the sexual harassment side, or on the treat you like shit because you're a woman's side, or both?
Both. I think, yeah. I would probably say both. Yeah.
Because
because there's sort of like a gravitas of certain, like, well, she's been around a while, or oh, look, there's an older woman, just, she gets it, or whatever. There's no.
They don't say, hey, she's in the fucking Smithsonian. Maybe we won't treat her like shit.
Maybe that has something with it, because I don't walk around with I don't advertise that.
Well, maybe you should. I'll tell them for you. I want to be your bodyguard.
You can go ahead. There you go. You can go ahead and go forward. Living Smithsonian artist. Don't forget that.
Yeah, exactly. The living part's probably the most important part, right? Particularly for Annie.
Well, it was a little unnerving because they kept saying that.
Yeah.
Everything they sent out.
And so what advice, would you have for younger entrepreneurs, male or female, and of course female as
Yeah, I would say, well, I think you said it a little bit, know your true north, know your limitations. For me, it's bigger stuff is pretty much, if it's your passion, then go for it. And the other side of it, the business side of it, it's not as scary as you think. A lot of it's just common sense. I mean, if you have common sense, you'll do well. Just be logical. Look at something from both sides. And also asking the right people. I used to ask people that I thought had done really well or whatever. And I realized, the person I was asking was definitely not the right person to ask. For instance, people who either have had a vested interest in how the decision was, you definitely don't want to ask them for advice, but you don't think that at the time. You just need help, and you're method. And, I think being stubborn helps, definitely be nice about it, but thank you very much. But, I'm not going to do that.
And you strike me as somebody who's very tough.
Well, I am, yes. Mm-hmm. I am. My standards are really tough. But, that was where I was educated again. It goes back to my teacher, Marvin Leposky. I cried every single day at school.
Because he pushed you so hard?
Yeah, and he pushed everyone else so hard. He was later, sued by a student.
For doing what?
For being too. I don't know what you'd say. I don't know I don't know all the details.
Okay,
but
he was aggressive about his standards.
Right, his standards. So when I got out of school, everyone had the same problem. Like, oh, you survived that? You survived.
So you had a real, what, I would think of as apprenticeship in that sense.
Somewhat, yeah. Or you could say a very sort of classic crafts education. We learned everything, like how to do sandblasting, cutting glass, every technique, and then Marvin would visit all of these glass factories in various countries around the world every summer. So he had this fantastic slide collection. And, one day you're in this little tiny room looking at slides for 2 hours of this work. And then you have your time on the glass blowing floor and in the lab to make your things. So, it was a great education in that regard of seeing everything that was possible, and also seeing that, and then meeting the artists too. They would come, and because he had these people would come here, and you'd meet them and talk to them and hear their stories and realize, wow, I was really influenced by Mary Schaffer, who's an artist that lives in New Mexico, and she was like a young mother, and she told me now, and she said, well, I came there because Marvin said he'd pay me $200. She had 2 little girls, and she would take meat hooks and hang this really thick pieces of glass in the kiln by meat hooks, and it would come out looking like a towel. And these things were just mind-blowing. You can see them. Mary Schaffer, check out her work, Schaffer. And they were just tremendous pieces, and I was so moved by her. So that really helped, and then also seeing a woman with young children, being able to do this.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I have learned, and this has gotten very clear for me in the last year or so since we've been doing Legends and Losers. And I sort of knew it, but it wasn't forefront in my head. For many of us, certainly true for me, it sounds like it was true for you, seeing somebody who looks like us, sounds like us, in some way we can relate to for some reason, but there's a self-identification that happens. We see ourselves in that person for some reason. It might not be they're a woman and you're a woman, or they're black and I'm black, or what, but for some reason, often it's that, but there's something where I see myself in that person. And for me, the people who were that way, not only did I see myself, but they also gave me permission to be the way I am, because I saw someone who I thought was kind of like the way I am or the way I wanted to be, but I was trying to be professional or trying to be an executive or trying to be whatever the fuck I thought I was trying to be versus being myself. And so when I saw one of these people that I could relate to, and they were A, authentic, and B, kind of like how I wanted to be, that gave me the permission, that free, it was like, oh, I didn't know you could actually
do this. Yeah.
Right. And so how important do you think that was for you and is for people?
At the time, it was hugely important because there were no role models. There were no women artists. There were no women glass artists. There were a couple of women there was one woman I can think of who was married to another glassblower, and they had a glass studio. But this woman was just breaking boundaries like crazy, literally, with these things with meat hooks. It was like, oh my God. To this day, I love, that's one of the pictures I have up in my office. It's one of her pieces. They're just, just to go ahead and do it. Part of it too, I think the risk taking I have to have that. So that's the great thing about working with glass is, it's like, oh, what if it breaks? So what if it breaks? it's probably gonna break. Just let it break. And then then we'll clean up the mess and figure it out, or make something out of the rest of it. But the whole thing about for advising other people about what they do is there's safe ways to take lots of risks in business. I think business is a good way, as opposed to other lifestyle choices.
Yes, exactly.
So that can be fun. And then when things work, I mean, like, certainly a lot of the problems that my company has had that I've tried to solve don't work, but most of them, I've been fortunate that they're small enough that I've been able to manage them.
Yeah.
And but then there's also some really big ones that I haven't. But I think the thing
and when
is,
you hit a big one that you haven't been able to deal with, how do you deal with that kind of a situation?
Get some professional help. Like in most cases, it's been that. It's just bite the bullet and go.
Go find someone.
Go find someone, or go find someone really skilled, or go find. Or another thing that I used to be able to go to other studios and ask them what they were doing. But now there's not as many of them. A lot of the people that were ahead of me have retired now, or just can't make things in the United States anymore. So there's not as many people to go to. But anyway, and I'd say, I used to tell people, like, just don't listen to anybody. I used to say that.
I think that's really great advice, actually. Don't listen to fucking anybody. That's great.
Like, just do what you want, man. Like, you think, your own gut is often, I mean, and I know for many years I used to make all the decisions with my gut, and I got to the point where the business was growing so big, and I was like, oh, my gut's hurting me, like my gut's killing me. And I can remember,
maybe you should try some probiotics.
Right. And no, it's quit making decisions with your gut and have some policies put in place. That was the thing, because Sherlyn would come to me and go, well, just make a policy, will you? And then I can follow it, like we don't have to make this decision every single time. And that was very helpful. For someone starting out, I think it's important too to know what your limitations are. One of my brothers gave me great advice when I first started, and he said, write everything down that you do in a day. And I think this still holds true. Write everything down you do in a day, and then look at it again and put your initial by the ones that only you can do. And it has to be only you. And the rest of it is your job description for your first employee. And it was so true. It was just such common sense, and it was so simple.
I just want to make sure I heard that.
Yeah.
So write down everything in a day.
Everything that you need, everything you do in a day. And then put your initial next to the ones that only you can do. And the rest of them is your job description for your first employee.
That's so genius. That's great advice for new managers too, right? Because even if I'm working for you, I'm not the entrepreneur.
Right.
And you hire me to be your marketing person, and the company's growing and this and that, and we're now ready to hire the second marketing person, right? That's just great advice for anybody.
Yeah. And I think too, hire up, hire people that know more than you do. That was a little hard in the beginning because my ego was too fragile, or I was too scared, or I didn't want to be.
You had to be the woe man.
Yeah, I had to be the one, And then, one of the best decisions I ever made was hiring the marketing director from Lalique is a French, very old French glass company, and beautiful luxury glassware. And he was awesome at marketing glassware. Well, he started featuring me. He used to handle Madame Lalique, who was this older lady who would go around. What am I saying? She's probably my age now. Should
we start calling you Madame Annie or Madame Anne?
Yeah, it's probably, now that I think of it, I can't use that phrase anymore. But she would go around and she'd sell $150,000 in one of her appearances at Neiman Marcus, or $100,000, in one day. I mean, back
in the day when $100,000 was $100,000.
Exactly. Of course, some of her tables are like, $20,000. I mean, some of the pieces were quite but she had all these rules. You can only have a gray or a black limo pick her up, no white limo. You had to cover all the other competitors. All the other glassware had to be covered. All these great, of course, not that I did that, but really smart things to get people to want to have me come to. And that's what I do a lot of. And we call them meet the artist. So I'll go to the stores and
we get to meet Annie.
Exactly. And then that's.
Do you remember the first time somebody asked for your autograph?
Well, I could tell you the first time I went to a big event where I went to Jackson, Mississippi. I'd never been to the South before. And they said that they had a lot of pieces for me to sign, to engrave. I would actually bring the engraving tool. Wow. And until I, busted a tendon doing that for many years. And signed. Severe carpal. It was not even. It was way worse than that. And so I would engrave, my signature on the back of the pieces, or say, to Chris and Candace or whatever, things like that. Yeah. And they like put me in this room, this back office, and there were like 35 pieces to sign. And I felt like Rapunzel, I just put in this tower, and just weave the straw into gold. It was just, oh my God. And so I realized, wow, we're onto something here.
We got something going.
Yeah, this is something, we gotta work this out. And then one of our good customers, she's really a pistol. The women in the South are great. I love going to the Deep South. It's so fun. And this one woman, she was the former Mrs. America of 1978, I think. And she's a drug rep now. Surprise, surprise. And she tells me she came to Beverly Hills and asked, she said, where y'all get your Annieglass here? To all these women. She was at some Republican convention or something. And she said, where y'all get your Annieglass? And they go, we don't know what that is. We only sell to one store, Geary's in Beverly Hills. And they didn't know anything about it. She said, well, where I'm from, if you don't have Annieglass, you ain't nobody. And so I thought, so I was like, whoa. And that's when I'm like, okay, I think I'll go to Mississippi twice a year, and Louisiana and Alabama.
They get my shit down there.
And then Texas. I'll go check that out more often.
And so today our Annieglass sales in the southern U.S. good?
Absolutely. They're better than California.
Isn't that interesting? And of course, Neiman's is, they're still headquartered in Dallas, are they not?
They are, yes.
Yeah.
They are.
And are they one of your good accounts?
They are. And so Bloomingdale's. Yeah. As a Bloomingdale's online, it's even better. And, but
so there's a Bloomingdale line that's exclusive to them?
Bloomingdale's online.
Oh, online. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, no, but the bulk of the stores that we sell to are independent stores. And that's, it's like me. It's like, the owner buyer is right there. And so the quality is incredible. And these women are amazing, and men that own these stores. And I love visiting them, particularly in the springtime. Like next month, I'll go through Mississippi and New Orleans. And some of these are like Del Williams here in town, that is now sells all the Annieglass downtown. Now when we closed our store, we got a little room in there, and that's a 5th generation. Emily Coonerty, her great grandfather started Del Williams.
Wow.
So she's not 5 years, fourth.
Four.
So Bromberg's. Bromberg's is through the South. Adler's in New Orleans. That is 5th generation. Appropriately run by Tiffany Adler, and who I've been friends with for a long time. And then Borsheim's is a store in Omaha, Nebraska that is ostensibly it's owned by Warren Buffett, and that's where he has his Berkshire Hathaway stockholder meeting every year, and the poker match.
It's like Woodstock, that thing, or
exactly,
or Burning Man, something.
It is, yes. And so we sell a lot of Annieglass at that event. So,
wow! Do you know if the Oracle is a fan?
Being made in America, I'm sure he is, because we make it in America. I think he would be very much so. And I think he understands it. yeah,
it's a product even I can understand.
Right.
And so, how do you think about the future, Annie? What's on the horizon?
Well, I'd like to get back to the artist in residence program that we had for a few years. I just got so busy that I couldn't devote the time. In the summer, well, and also things have changed. We used to be kind of slow in the summertime, so we'd have artists come and work in the studio, and then, of course, that expression like, "Don't ever work with friends or family." I shouldn't have had my friend come from New Orleans.
Yes, I've heard that's a wise idea.
Yeah, I know. Well,
I haven't always stuck to it, but
he wanted to work in plexiglass, which I'm like, of course you can't work in plexiglass. No, you can't. Somehow managed to, push his way through and worked in plexiglass, which in turn lit the kilns on fire, since we didn't know what we were doing. So that was it. So we haven't had anyone since then. So I thought, I think a little more supervision from me might be a better idea. So, but no, I think that's a wonderful way to go, artists in residence, and having more art. It's really fun for all of us. My criteria is that they don't know, that they've never worked in glass before, or that they don't work in glass, or they're not glass artists.
So you want a newbie. You want...
we want that curiosity, and that questioning, and that, that stubborn questioning, and like, are you crazy? No, we can't do that. And then having to go problem solve it. It's like, what a perfect way to problem solve. Particularly if it's in pursuit of something beautiful to make. Then okay, we'll figure that out. Sure.
Does it also help your creative side in that if I was an artist and I qualified for this program with you, but I don't, of course, have any glass experience, does it help you see your craft through fresher eyes by doing that? Yes.
Well, the other thing is I do it for the staff too, for the people, because we're all there. We're all sort of addicted to glass too. We all love, we could do anything new and the staff will be like, "Oh my God, that's so great. I love it." It's like, yeah, but it's not good enough to sell to the buyers who are looking at all this other stuff, Right.
Because we're all glass art dorks, right?
We're glass nerds there, So we nerd out on that. Look at this. Oh my God. The kiln melted. Look at that. It's it's turned into liquid, whatever. We get excited pretty easily. So it's great to have, like you just said, a new set of eyes and this curiosity. And then, and I'd love to see the staff get so excited about that. And, that's why I do it. There's a precedent of big factories in Europe would do that. And so would the Kohler factory in Wisconsin. They would bring artisans in. In fact, a local ceramic artist, Karen, I can't remember her last name, was a speaker when I was a student and talked about her experience at the Kohler factory and how they let them come in and just go crazy with clay.
Yeah. So
So I would
very
like
cool.
That would be really the luxury, to be able to do that, and not just make it be a summer program, but actually
do it all the time.
A separate, like artists in residence with a place where they could live, and the whole thing. And then the future, I love my work at the California College of the Arts. I'm an advisor to the MBA program there. It was the first MBA program in the nation at an art school. And
so I just want to make sure I understand. California College of Arts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm there doing whatever art program I'm doing, and I can get an MBA in an art school.
Yes, it's the design MBA.
And how perfect for you to be involved per our earlier discussion around both sides of your brain, right? You're like their dream come true. You have to be.
Well, I was a big proponent of it. I really thought we needed it, and and definitely helped push it as a trustee. On the board, a lot of people weren't quite sure about it, but it's become one of the most successful programs. So. So I love being on the campus, and working with the students. I advise students in that program.
Why do you want to give back like that, Ann?
I taste the creativity when you go on the campus. It's just so great, Love to be around that. It's all that great energy. I think everyone does. Everybody who's involved in that.
So awesome.
Well, because I want to give back because I didn't get as much as I'd like to. I went to Catholic school and we didn't even have an art program. I had to go on Saturday mornings to get art classes, and didn't really have a mentor until high school in art. And then, so I think it's important. And I do it for myself. It's way fun. It's really fun. I like it. A lot of
I
good
love
ones
it.
there.
Well, and you are an incredible inspiration.
Thank you.
Annieglass is awesome.
Thanks.
This may sound like a corny thing for me to say to you, but I love everything about what you do.
Great.
I think it's just awesome.
Thank
I
you.
can't thank Karen enough for putting us in touch.
Yes, she's a doll.
She's such an extraordinary woman. I'm so glad we connected.
Good.
Is there anything else before we kick out of this wave?
No, come on down to the craft bar and check it out.
And we'll do a little, quickie follow up on the tour.
Love it. It'd be great. All right, thank you for having me.
Oh my God,
really fun.
You're a joy, and stay legendary.
Okay.
Whew. If Annie doesn't make you feel better about business and life, I don't know who will. If you know somebody who would love this conversation with Ann, why not share it with them right now? And we would love it. From the whiskey-stained cockles of the bottom of my soul, if you shared this episode with Ann on social media. Now, don't forget to check out netsuite.com/legends for your free growth review. And I want to remind you that Heather Clancy and I have a new book coming out called Niche Down. We would love to send you the current draft of Chapter 1. In exchange for that, we just ask you to support us when the book comes out. Tell your friends, drop us an Amazon review, hire a helicopter and drop copies of Chapter 1 out of that helicopter over your hometown. Anyway, to do that, if you want your Chapter 1, send email to blackhole@legendsandlosers.com, all one word, subject line, niche down, and we will send you the current draft of Chapter 1. All right. We would like to thank the amazing people at Annieglass. Check them out at annieglass.com. Your epic life blueprint. Quick. One day I'm going to learn how to read and talk at the same time. This is Rock Thomas's book. He's been a guest on Legends and Losers. He's a hero of mine. He's got this amazing book. It's called Your Epic Life Blueprint. Check it out wherever you buy legendary books. Our good friends at Verve Coffee Roasters here in Santa Cruz, they are the leaders in West Coast artisan coffee and the official coffee of this podcast. Check out vervecoffee.com. HarperCollins Instant Classic, Play Bigger. How Pirates, Dreamers, and Innovators Create and Dominate Markets. Why not pick up a couple copies and hand them out as gifts? EquityDirectory.com, connecting startups to the talent and resources they need to build legendary businesses. If you're in the startup ecosystem, you need to get on EquityDirectory.com. Our good friends at OneLifeFullyLived.org. This is the nonprofit started by my dear friend, the incredible Tim Rode. Check out OneLifeFullyLived.org, and we will help you dream, plan, and live your best life. The new Jordan Harbinger Show with our friend and guest on episode 135, the incredible podcast legend, Jordan Harbinger. Check them out and hit subscribe, and you'll love episode 135. PursuingResults.com. They produce legendary podcasts, and every once in a while, they produce this one too. Check them out. If you're a thought leader, get your leading thoughts on podcasts by being a guest. Check out InterviewValet.com. Stop Riding the Pine, one of our favorite podcasts with the nicest man in podcasting, Jamie J., and Doctors Without Borders. They make a difference in some of the toughest places on planet Earth. They were the first NGO to get a Nobel Peace Prize. These are great people doing incredibly hard work. Check out doctorswithoutborders.org. All right, this oddcast is the sole property of the Legends and Losers Oddcast Network, and we would love it. Just a little extra if you shared the shit out of it. We must remind you that all rights do remain disturbed, and we must warn you, this oddcast is clearly produced in a studio that contains nuts and a couple other things. Teach kids art. Don't forget Tom Waits was right. Go for a surf. Listen to Linkin Park. Remember, there's no such thing as a participation award. Don't be lame. Get out of the passing lane. That's the left lane. Move over and let me go by. Call your mom and dad. Only buy pasture-raised, free-range eggs. When in doubt, shred it out. Thank you, Dandy Candy. I love you, Mom and Dad. And hey, Colin, this oddcast really ties the room together, doesn't it? Today, our deepest apologies go to Marcus Rust, CEO of Rose Acre Farms. Sorry, Marcus, we just ran out of time for you. That's it. We're out of here, folks. Thank you so much for investing your life with us. We really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you again soon on another episode of Legends and Losers.